Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this next tarot deep dive. We are now going into we will do the swords and the discs today in regards to the court cards because I think I want to be able to move on, and I think I can do 1 hour today, so we'll do both in all in one video. Yeah, because like as far as I know, it's personality archetypes, but I think what's more important is how it interrelates with the elements and the planets. If you sort of look into the understanding the Thoth Tarot by Lamaila Duquette, which is a fantastic book. I think buying both the Book of Thoth and understanding the Thoth Tarot are brilliant together, and you should read them alongside each other. But without further ado, we are going to get into the first one, which would be the Knight of Swords. And then we will be going into the discs, and that will be the conclusion of the court cards. And I'm excited because I want to see how much more we could maybe learn from this. So it's a bit hot. Probably shouldn't do that, but without further ado, all right, let's go. Okay, so the Knight of Swords. He is active, clever, subtle, fierce, delicate, courageous, skillful, but inclined to domineer. Also to overvalue small things unless well dignified, if ill dignified, deceitful, tyrannical, and crafty. So this is Gemini, and I don't know. Sorry to all the Geminis out there, but I don't know. That's what I've noticed, and they're the most frustrating people in terms of that zodiac sign. I'm sure everyone has like a weird sort of zodiac that just never seem to jive with on some level, even if you don't really have that. And Geminis are those people. Anyway, so the Knight of Swords represents the fiery part of air. He is the wind, the storm. He represents the violent power of motion applied to an apparently manageable element. He rules from the 21st degree of Taurus to the 20th degree of Gemini. He is a warrior helmed, and for his crest he bears a revolving wing, mounted upon a maddened steed. He drives down the heavens, spirit of the tempest. In one hand is a sword, in the other a poniard. He represents the idea of attack. The moral qualities of a person thus indicated are activity and skill, subtlety and cleverness. He is fierce, delicate, and courageous, but altogether the prey of his idea, which comes to him as an inspiration without reflection. Yeah. If he'll dignify the vigor in all these qualities being absent, he is incapable of decision or purpose. Any action that he takes is easily brushed aside by opposition. Inadequate violence spells futility. Chimera, Bomb, Nakas, and Vakal. So that's from Prodigal and Gargantua, if I remember what that's actually called. Apparently, it's a huge book. I looked at it, but I want to read it because it's constantly being referenced, and it's something to do with like massive overinflated egos and a bunch of other things. But can't get everyone to read it, so whatever. In the I Ching, the fiery part of air is represented by the 32nd hexagram, hung. This is the first occasion in which it has been simple to demonstrate the close technical parallelism which identifies Chinese thought and experience with that of the West. For the meaning is long continuance, perseverance in well-doing, or continuously acting out the law of one's being. As Lega put it in his note on the hexagram, and this seems incongruous with the Kabbalistic idea of violent energy applied to the least stable of the elements, but the trigram of air also indicates wood, and the hexagram may have suggested the irresistible flow of the sap and its effect in strengthening the tree. This conjecture is supported by the warning in line 6. The topmost line, divided, shows its subject exciting himself to long continuance. There will be evil. There you go. Allowing this, the image of the extended flame of mind, as Zoroaster calls it, may well be subjoined to the form of description. It is the true will exploding the mind spontaneously. The influence of Taurus makes for steadiness, and that of the first decanter of Gemini for inspiration. So let us picture him. Integer vitae sclericus purus, a light shaft of the ideal absorbing the entire life in concentrated aspiration passing from earthy Taurus to exalted Gemini. Here too is shown, as in the Yi, the danger of the subject of the symbol. For the first deacon is the card called Interference, or the old pack shortened Force. Okay. Yeah. Maybe while we stop there, maybe I need to look at that a little bit different, because obviously I need to look at things like deacons and rulers and all that other kind of thing, and the other cards. So maybe the minor cards actually have something to do with all these archetypes, which I didn't actually consider. So I should definitely keep that in mind. So maybe I shouldn't be so hard on the core cards as just representing archetypes and zodiacs, and that there's actually something else to it. But yeah, that is a very important thing. So now we get into the Lon Milo Duquette one, and then we'll go on to the next one. I've done as you suggested to the swords. Thank you, Mr. Crowley. You were quite right. Okay. Harris to Crowley, date uncertain. Swords are the suit of air, and as we begin our examination of these cards, I must point out a design motif that appears repeatedly in all the cards of this suit. Wings. Lady Harris incorporates angular and highly stylized wings everywhere. They may not always look like wings, but that is what they are. Beginning with the Knights of Swords, we see that what appears at first to be 4 propeller blades spinning atop his pointed helmet are actually 4 triangular wings sprouting from his back. Oh. Yeah, that is definitely so. They are transparent and veined like those of a dragonfly. Perhaps they are only 2 wings that are moving so fast they appear as 4. I never considered that. Yeah, that's actually really cool. Please take a moment and look at the Queen, Prince, and Princess of Swords, and locate the marvelous angular wings on these figures. Now, look at all the small cards of the suit and see the background festooned with these stylized wings. Some balanced, almost pinwheel in form, some twisted, broken, stretched, and distorted. Yeah, I'll look at the small cards later. It has been suggested that these figures represent magical sigils drawn from planetary kamas or magical squares. Anyone familiar with the extent, or should I say the limits, of Lady Harris's magical education at the time would not even suggest such a thing. The Knight of Swords is fire of air, suggestive of a violent mind. The general divinatory meaning of the card can be summed up in one word: attack. The moral qualities of person thus indicated. Crowley warned, activity and skill, subtlety and cleverness. He is fierce, delicate, and courageous, but altogether the prey of his idea, which comes to him as an inspiration without reflection. Famous Knights of Swords include Baron Munchausen, Arthur Conan Doyle, Pope John Paul II, Malcolm X, Queen Victoria, John Wayne, John F. Kennedy, Marilyn Monroe, and Cher. Sky blue, yellows, and white cirrus clouds dominate the skin as they do the Queen of Swords. All right. So that seems to be kind of interesting. Those kinds of people. I'm not really interested in people, but I think it's also worth noting. All right, now we get into the Queen of Swords. So let's scroll down to it. Here we go. Water of Air, Queen of Swords, Libra, my rising sign. So this is always a bit interesting. And it's interesting that it connects to Virgo as well. So maybe there's a point to it as well, because Virgo... So like Virgo Sun with Libra rising. Don't know what that is. Someone trying to call me? Nope. It's more pointless stuff. Never mind. Okay, let's get into Queen of Swords. Intensely perceptive, keen observation, subtle, quick and confident, often persevering, accurate in superficial things, graceful, fond of dancing and balancing, if ill-dignified, cruel, sly, deceitful, unreliable, though with a good exterior. Interesting. So, The Queen of Swords represents the watery part of air, the elasticity of that element, and its power of transmission. She rules from the 21st degree of Virgo to the 20th degree of Libra. She is enthroned upon the clouds. The upper part of her body is naked, but she wears a gleaming belt and a sarong. Her helmet is crested by the head of a child, and from it stream sharp rays of light, illuminating her empire of celestial dew. In her right hand she bears a sword. In her left hand, the newly severed head of a bearded man. She is the clear conscious perception of idea, the liberator of the mind. I just had to stop and think about that, because if we're looking at the degrees at which certain planets are ruled, and not the actual sign, that would have to mean that, yeah, I am both a Queen of Swords, in both my sun and my rising. So, yeah, liberation of mind over matter and all other kinds of things is definitely what I'm about when I think about it. Okay, the person symbolized by this card should be intensely perceptive, a keen observer, a subtle interpreter, an intense individualist, swift and accurate at recording ideas. I mean, let me, swift and accurate at recording ideas. Let's see how, I want to see how big all my recordings are over a 6-year period. So, guys, that's 6 years of recordings. It's insane. I never thought I would have written that much. And I think that's that's definitely true. Swift and accurate recording ideas. I don't know about the accurate part, but definitely swift and recording it and in great detail. In action, confident, in spirit, gracious and just. Her movements will be graceful, and her ability in dancing and balancing exceptional. If ill-dignified, these qualities will be turned to unworthy purposes. She'll be cruel, sly, deceitful, and unreliable. In this way, very dangerous, and on account of the superficial beauty and attractiveness which distinguish her. In the Yi King, the warrior part of air is represented by the 20th hexagram Ta Quo. The shape suggests a weak beam. All right. The character, excellent in itself, cannot support interference, foresight, and prudence, care, and preparation of action. Or a safeguard line I. Advantage is to be one, moreover by the reliance of help from apparently unsuitable comrades. Line 2 and 5. This alien strength often supplies the defeat of inherent weakness and maybe even create definite superiority to circumstance. Line 4. In such an event, there may be temptation to undertake rash adventures foredoomed to failure. I mean, I've certainly done that a lot in my life, undertaken rash adventures and gotten myself into plenty of trouble. So I guess that's true. But even so, no blame is incurred. Line 6, the conditions of true will have been satisfied, and the issue is compensated by the feeling that the right, however unfortunate, course has been adopted. Such people acquire intense love and devotion from the most unexpected quarters. Yeah, that sort of happens a lot when I think about it. Anyway, we are now going to go into Duquette's explanation. So maybe this is good stuff for shadow work, and seeing how that if you, I guess, look at things such as like the angles at which your zodiac is set up, it might actually be helpful for like interpretation and shadow work. And I'm actually quite glad that I've actually run into this one, because that's sort of very, very on point of how I've really worked most of the time. Like an intense individuality is definitely a part of it. A lot of recording. Yep. Gracious and just. I've definitely tried to be that, although sometimes people take advantage of that, and now I'm a bit more careful about who I extend mercy and justice to. So, and I think that's fair. But yeah. So maybe do a little bit of shadow work and actually use astrology as some form of that, and maybe using the tarot especially here is really important, because I didn't think about any of that before. This card represents Crowley's sun sign, and so naturally it is the most intimidating card in the deck. One look at this lady tells us that she means business. Water of air is suggestive of clouds that promise either life-giving rain or the threat of a torrential cloudburst. She holds the severed head of a bearded man in her left hand and sword of that probably did the job in her right. One may think this grisly touch is just another gruesome Crowleyism. It is not. This image is the classic Golden Dawn description of the Queen of Swords and makes a fundamental Kabbalistic statement. The suit, this suit of sword represents Yetzirah, the formative world, the mind's eye of deity. Swords and Yetzirah counterpart in the human soul is the Ruach, the intellect which is centered in the brain, the human head. Using the sword of discretion and reason, the queen has separated the higher faculties of the intellect from the influence of the lower nature, the nefesh, the animal soul. She is quite literally, Crowley points out, the liberator of the mind. The head of that was of a bearded man, the hermit of Virgo, perhaps. Zam. Alright. The eyes closed peacefully, the face suggesting the trance of deep meditation. The influence of Virgo moving into Libra gives the Queen of Swords the practicality and grace of a great monarch. This native should be intensely perceptive, a keen observer, a subtle interpreter, an intense individual, swift and accurate, recording ideas in action, confident in spirit, gracious and just. I should probably be a bit more confident in action. Her movements will be graceful and her ability in dancing and balancing exceptional. If ill-dignified, she can be as cruel and dangerous as she looks. Damn. Crowley's fellow Queen of Swords include Mahatma Gandhi, Eleanor Roosevelt, H.G. Wells, and Stephen King. It's interesting because I just saw Eleanor Roosevelt on Facebook, like a quote from her just recently, like 10 minutes before this. So that's interesting. Sky blue, yellow, and white cumulus clouds dominate this card. Well, that's actually quite an interesting one, that it's also relegated to the Hermit, so maybe that is my portrait in particular, the Queen of Swords. So I'm definitely going to be looking at that a little bit more going into the future, and maybe do some contemplation on that card specifically. All right. Let's go into the next one, which is going to be Prince of Swords. It's not a very good one, unfortunately. It doesn't look like, because it's like constantly cutting things off and that kind of thing, which is not fun. And which one is that? 20th degree of Capricorn and Aquarius. All right. Let's look into it a bit more. All right. I'm not supposed to be reading that quite yet. Anyway, now that we've set up, let's go into this one. So how many? So 17. Yeah, I'll do this in one large thing where we'll do swords and discs. All right, Prince of Swords. Full of ideas and thoughtful in designs, distrustful, suspicious, firm in friendship and enmities. Careful, observant, slow, overcautious, symbolizes Alpha and Omega. He slays as fast as he creates. If ill-dignified, harsh, malicious, plotting, obstinate, yet hesitating, unreliable. Sorry, guys. Someone's at the door. Well, guys, I just got accosted by a few evangelists and Jehovah's Witness. Would you know? And what I find really interesting. So it came as soon as I did that Air of Air. So if anyone knows about the Abyss, you have to see as every kind of impression or anything as like some direct communication with your soul. So let's have a look. Full of ideas and thoughtful in decision, distrustful, suspicious, firm in friendship and enmity, careful, observant, slays as fast as it creates, if ill-dignified, harsh, malicious, plotting, obstinate, yet hesitating, unreliable. And here is the... Just want to make sure. Don't really want to dox myself on my occasion. But this is what I just received at the door, right here, from the Jehovah's Witness. Will suffering end? No, it will not. As long as we are alive, people, the suffering will fucking continue, okay? The point is to become like he who where glory and suffering is indistinguishable. All right, let's continue. All right. This card represents the airy part of air. With its particular interpretation, it is intellectual, it is a picture of the mind as such. He rules from the 21st degree of Capricornius to the 20th degree of Aquarius. The figure of this prince is clothed with closely woven armor adorned with definitive device, and the chariot which bears him suggests even more closely geometrical ideas. This chariot is drawn by winged children looking and leaping irresponsibly in any direction that takes their fancy. They are not restrained, but perfectly capricious. The chariot consequently is easy enough to move, but quite unable to progress in any definite direction except by accident. This is a perfect picture of the mind. And I think that's really important. This is probably the only one that actually seems to really drive the point home that all these archetypes probably exist in the mind in some way. And I would happen to agree that yeah, it's a picture of the mind. Like, even though it might be moving, like even though there might be movement, but like if you're capricious, there's like you may as well not be going anywhere. So there's no restraint, and I think that's a really important thing that I need to keep in mind, I guess. If you don't restrain, you're just going to go in circles. It doesn't matter if the activity is it doesn't matter if there's lots of activity. You may as well just not be doing anything. And I think that's a really important thing to maybe keep in mind. On the head, this prince is nevertheless a child's head radiant. For there is a secret crown in the nature of this card. If concentrated, it is exactly Tippereth. The operation of his logical mental processes have reduced the air, which is his element, to too many diverse geometrical patterns, but in these there is no real plan. They are demonstrations of the powers of the mind without definite purpose. In his right hand is a lifted sword wherewith to create, but in his left hand a sickle, so that what he creates he instantly destroys. A person thus symbolized is purely intellectual. He is full of ideas and designs which tumble over each other. He is a mass of fine ideals unrelated to practical effort. He has all the apparatus of thought in the highest degree, intensely clever, admirable, rational, but unstable of purpose, and in reality indifferent even to his own ideas. As knowing that any one of them is just as good as any other, he reduces everything to unreality by removing its substance and transmuting it into an ideal world of ratiocination, which is purely formal and out of relation to any facts, even those upon which it is based. Okay. In the I Ching, the airy part of air is represented by the 57th hexagram, Sun. This is one of the most difficult figures in the book on account of its ambivalence. It means both flexibility and penetration. Immensely powerful because of its complete freedom from settled principles, capable of maintaining and putting forward any inconceivable argument. Insusceptible of regret or remorse, glib to quote scripture, aptly and cunningly support any thesis. However, there you go. That's probably why I just got that Jehovah's Witness thing. Aptly and cunningly to support any thesis, so indifferent to the fate of any contrary argument advanced 2 minutes earlier. Impossible to defeat because any position is as good as any other. Ready to enter into combination with the nearest element available, these elusive and elastic people are of value only when firmly mastered by creative will fortified by an intelligence superior to their own. In practice, this is rarely possible. There is no purchase to be had upon them, not even by pandering to their appetites. They may nevertheless be stormy, even uncontrollable. Faddists, devotees of drink, drugs, humanitarianism, music, or religion are often in this class. But when this is the case, there is still no stability. They wander from one cult or one vice to another, always brilliantly supporting with the fanaticism of fixed conviction what is actually no more than a whim of the moment. Kind of interesting when you think about it. It is easy to be deceived by such people, for the manifestation itself has enormous potency. It is as if an imbecile offered on the dialogue of Plato. They may in this way acquire a great reputation both for depth and breadth of mind. All right. That is probably a meaty card in of itself. Maybe that is also a pretty important one. The air. I'm starting to notice that all the court cards in terms of the air are quite brilliant. Okay, it is. Now we get on to this one. So, it's easy to be deceived by such people, for the manifestation itself has enormous potency. It is an imbecile offered one of the dialogues of Plato. They may in this way acquire great reputation of both for depth and breadth of mind. Alright. An earlier version of this card paints a kinder, gentler picture of the Prince of Swords and the arch fairies who draw his chariot. The final version is full of mad, seemingly futile movement. The geometrical wings of the prince and the children are enclosed in bright yellow bubbles, air of air. The children pull the chariot irresponsibly in any direction they take their fancy. They are not reined, but perfectly capricious. The chariot consequently is easy enough to move, but quite unable to progress in any definite direction except by accident. This is a perfect picture of the mind. Just like what we said, maybe it needs to be sort of reset as well, because I think we need to really stop mistaking activity for progress. And I think in some way, if it's properly restrained, you can actually use less energy in less amount of time and achieve greater ends as a result. Don't be like Polyphemus in that sense. And I think that's a really important thing. Otherwise, you're just going in circles. Like a madman who a brain creates only to destroy, we see the prince with the sword in his right hand, with which he creates the ideas and images, and the sickle in his left hand, with which he immediately cuts them down. This sounds like madness, but we are doing the same thing every moment of our waking lives. Ain't that the truth? When the mind is given a creative outlet for this process, such as music, literature, or film making, we discover great genius. Mozart and Mendelssohn were princes of swords, as were the great film directors W. Griffith and Federico Fellini, and the visionary Emanuel Swedenborg. Crowley heaps great praise upon the pure intelligence of the Prince of Swords, but he cannot avoid discussing the futility of thinking about thinking. He is full of ideas and designs which tumble over each other. He points out he is a mass of fine ideal unrelated to practical effort. And that sort of defines our culture when you think about it. Like, really, think about it. Like, we're in the age of Aquarius, and this is sort of the sign that it's relegated to. So, if we were to give the Aeon a particular kind of archetype that we're in now, this would be it, the Prince of Swords. And I think this is a perfect description of where we are right now. All right. Crowley heaps... The great actor James Dean was a Prince of Swords, and while Jim Stark, the character he played so brilliantly in the film Rebel Without a Cause, was fictitious, Dean nonetheless gave profound life to that role. In my mind, it was the perfect tortured portrayal of the frustrations inherent in this card. A performance that I believe in all likelihood would have been appreciated by fellow Prince of Swords Edgar Allan Poe. Clouds of sharp white crystals, yellows, and metallic greens dominate this card. All right. So that is the Prince of Swords. Now we go to the Princess of Swords, Earth of Air. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. You know, the core cards have actually become really interesting all of a sudden now that I'm actually starting to understand them beyond just archetypes of zodiacs and understanding how they sort of manifest in each and every one of us. Princess of Swords, here we go. All right. Wisdom, strength, acuteness, subtlety, and material things, grace and dexterity. If ill dignified, she is frivolous and cunning. The Princess of Swords represents the earthy part of air, the fixation of the volatile. She brings about the materialization of idea. She represents the influence of heaven upon earth. She partakes of the characteristics of Minerva and Artemis, and there is some suggestion of the Valkyrie. She represents to some extent the anger of the gods, and she appears helmed with serpent-haired Medusa for her crest. She stands in front of a barren altar as if to avenge its profanation. Oh, interesting. And she stabs downward with her sword. The heaven... Oh, and if you notice, there's actually a bit of a swastika forming on her back too. I think that's actually quite important when you look at it that way. She is firm and aggressive with great practical wisdom and subtlety in material things. She shews great cleverness and dexterity in the management of practical affairs, especially where they are of controversial nature. She is very adroit in the settlement of controversies. If ill-dignified, all these qualities are dispersed, she becomes incoherent, and all her gifts tend to combine to form a species of low cunning whose object is unworthy of the means. And the Yi King, the earthy part of air is represented by the 18th hexagram coup. This means troubles. It is, for all practical and material matters, the most unhappy symbol in the book. Damn. All the fine qualities of air are weighed down, suppressed, suffocated. People thus characterized as slightly mentally, the prey of constant anxiety, crushed by every kind of responsibility, but especially in family affairs. One of both of the parents will usually be found in this etiology. It is hard to understand line 6, which shows us one who does not serve either king or feudal lord, but in a lofty spirit prefers to follow his own bent. The explanation is that a princess, as such, being the throne of spirit, may always have the option of throwing everything overboard, blowing everything sky high. Such action would account for the characteristics above given for the card when well dignified. Such people are exceedingly rare, and naturally enough, they appear often as children of misfortune. Nevertheless, they have chosen it right, and in due season gain their reward. All right. Let's look at the next one, which is now we're on to the Descartes explanation. The character of the princess is stern and revengeful. Her logic is destructive. She is firm and aggressive, with great practical wisdom and subtlety in material things. She shows great cleverness and dexterity in the management of practical affairs, especially when they are controversial in nature. She is very adroit in settlement of controversies. All right. Rising out of a cloud of dust, Crowley's a paradoxical princess of swords, earth of air, appears like a beautiful avenging angel. Her head is crowned with a Medusa-headed helmet, which mercifully is turned away from our view. Oh. Okay, that's actually kind of interesting. Maybe... There's so much symbolism in all these cards, man. I mean, when after this, I'm probably going to paint my own tarot deck. I'm not a great artist, but I think that's not really the point. And I think everyone should actually try it. And I'll probably get a bunch of inspiration, look at a few tarot decks and look at it one by one and sort of meditate upon it. So I think that's always a really, really interesting thing to think about. Let's go to rising. Okay. For if we were to gaze upon its awful face, we would surely be turned to stone. Turning things to stone, fixation of the volatile, materialization of idea is just part of the job description for Princess of Swords. However, the suit of swords as Ruach, the intellect, is a wonderful aspect of our being because when we identify with the Ruach, we rise above and separate ourselves from our lower nature, the animal soul, the Nefesh. However, when we identify with the Ruach, we also separate ourselves from the higher parts of our souls that represent greater realities and levels of consciousness that our Ruach is incapable of comprehending. Consequently, the Ruach does everything it can to keep it grasped on our identity. This is why the Eastern mystics warn us that the mind is a great enemy. It must be defeated in battle. When the battle begins, the Ruach naturally sends its finest swords into the field. A warrior princess who manifests everything that is inherent yet hidden in her lord, the Aether, a mighty champion of the mind, a Minerva, and Artemis, a Valkyrie, the princess of swords. So there's probably a few things I want to write down from that, to be honest. I'm actually really enjoying this. So there's Gorgons, there's fucking... Yeah, So I think the idea is, if you identify too much with the mind and the ego, you actually turn to stone. I think that's the whole idea. You crystallize. You become basically unmovable. And I think that's actually the whole part of it with the Gorgons, and maybe that's a part of it. And with Medusa. Swirling clouds of grey-black dust and violent windbursts darken the heavens that almost completely dominate the obscure what once was the yellows and blue of their suit. Since princesses do not rule the careers of the zodiacal year, we have no example of celebrated personalities who were princesses of swords. But I'm actually really surprised I came across something like that. So maybe there is something to the whole idea of Gorgons. I might want to actually reread that and maybe go over it in future videos, because what I plan to do after doing all these tarot deep dives is just go into typical wisdom, maybe start dissecting symbolism on particular stories or mythology, and actually materializing it into actual substance instead of just looking at it like, Morg, and like how he only sort of goes about the stories of it but never really crystallizes it into reality. Because that's what pisses me off about the current climate of the occult, I guess. And I think that's a pretty important thing, is we talk about stories and mythology, but we never put it into practical use, into how that actually applies in the real world and how that actually materializes. And I think with that in mind, it's my job to potentially do that, because no one actually seems to be fucking doing it. So I think that's a really important thing. All right. Now that I've thought about that, may we now go on to discs. It's 36 minutes. It's going to be a bit longer than usual, it looks like, but it's all good. I'm really enjoying it. I'm glad I did it today with more energy, because I actually was trying to do it like yesterday morning, but I was like 5 minutes in. I was like, nah, bruh. But today, I feel incredible, and I sometimes wonder if it's because of the caffeine. But all right, we now get to the Knight of Discs, and now depending on who I am, I'm actually not the Knight of Discs. There you go. Lol. So I'm actually the Queen of Swords. Wonderful. All right. Let's go. All right. 20th degree Leo to 20th degree of Virgo. So that would be, yeah. So here we go with the Knight of Discs. Unless very well dignified, he is heavy, dull, and material. Laborious, clever, impatient in material matters. If ill dignified, he is avaricious, grasping, dull, jealous, not very courageous, unless assisted by other symbols. Crowley must have fucking hated Virgos. It's sort of interesting. And, maybe now that I think about it, when I think about where all these personality archetypes emanate from, you could probably think about how the planet sort of influences between these archetypes and how it actually influences them. So there's a lot to think about with that. And so as such, I should probably get into more astrology. Anyway, it's been a really good video so far. All right, let's begin. The Knight of Discs represents the fiery part of Earth, and refers in particular to the phenomena of mountains, earthquakes, and gravitation, but it also represents the activity of Earth regarded as the producer of life. He rules from the 21st degree of Leo to the 20th degree of Virgo, and is thus concerned greatly with agriculture. This warrior is short and sturdy in type. He is clothed in great solidity of plate armor, but his helmet, which is crested with the head of a stag, is thrown back, for at the moment his function is entirely confined to the production of food. For this reason, he is armed with a flail. The disc which he bears, moreover, is very solid. It represents nutrition. These characters are borne out by his horse, a shy horse, solidly planted on all feet. As was not the case with the other knights.
He rides through the fertile land, even the distant hills are cultivated fields. Those whom he symbolizes tend to be dull, heavy, and preoccupied with material things. They are laborious and patient, but would have little intellectual grasp even of matters which concern them most closely. Their success in these is due to instinct, to imitation of nature. They lacked initiative. Their fire is the smoldering fire of the process of growth. Damn. If ill-dignified, these people are hopelessly stupid, slavish, quite incapable of foresight, even in their own affairs, or taking an intelligent interest in anything outside of them. They are churlish, surly, and jealous in a dull sort of way of what they instinctively realize is the superior state of others, but they have not the courage or intelligence to better themselves. Yet they are always irritably meddling about petty matters they interfere with and inevitably spoil whatever comes their way. In the Yi King, the inferior part of Earth is represented by the 62nd hexagram Hisakawa. Oh, if I butchered that, whatever. This is important as it complements Kung Fu. See under the Prince of Cups. Okay. It is a big Khan, the trigram of Luna, which each line doubled, but is also suggested of the geomantic figure conjunctio, Mercury in Virgo, corresponding very closely indeed with the fire of Earth attributed to the Kabbalistic system. To the Chinese sages, moreover, the shape of the figure gave the idea of a bird. The meaning is, accordingly, modified by human influence of more frivolous and irresponsible kind. Shakespeare's little wanton harlotry, the French cynic's souvent femme vain, and the fickle mob of Coriolanus, indeed, of history itself. But Mercury in Virgo symbolizes intelligence and every creative idea applied to agriculture. And this once more harmonizes perfectly with the Ten of Discs, which is ruled by this planet and this sign. This adds to the superabundant massive proof that this whole system of symbolism is based upon realities of nature and as understood by the materialist school of science, if such a school survives in some obscure obsolete university. Such coherence, such introverted exfoliation cannot be the chance of parallelism of the dreams of nebulous philosophies. The character described by this code is therefore exceeding complex yet admirably well knit, but its dangers are indicated by the symbols of Luna and the bird, that in the happiest cases. The qualities thus indicate will be romance and imagination, but overweening ambition, the pursuit of ignis fatuus, superstition, and the tendency to waste time in idle dreaming are perils all too frequently found in such sons of the soil. Thomas Hardy has painted many admirable portraits of the time. Ill-starred indeed and black with bile are those who have profaned the sacred fire, not enkindling earth to new, more copious, more varied light, but appearing in deceptive moonlight, turning their face from their mother earth. Interesting. So it's about almost turning your head away from Mother Earth, which is an interesting thing to think about. We will now go into the... That was such a lengthy one, man. It was a bit verbose. We'll now go into Lon Milo DeQuette's understanding of it. I'm doing the King of Pentacles. I didn't like what I had done. Someone had lent me a genuine flail. It is like this manuscript drawing of a flail, a lovely instrument of solid wood, most difficult to manage. The Knight of Discs is unique amongst his brother knights. He appears to be shortest in stature. He rides a war horse that seems to be more concerned with eyeing the lush grass than with conveying his rider. His helmet is completely raised, and he gazes at the fertile fields and hills, and if in contemplation of harvest, not battle, his flail dangles near the grasses, suggesting the thrashing of wheat rather than the thrashing of heads. And his shield is a disc that could double as a dish that could hold enough food to feed a village. Am I masking this up just because I'm hungry and dinner is late? Not at all. Crowley writes that the function of the Knight of Discs is entirely confined to the production of food. Interesting. I'm sure that there are many geniuses and intellectually brilliant individuals whose birthdays fall between August 12 and September 11. Napoleon Bonaparte. Damn. Cardinal Richelieu, Louis the 14th, Bill Clinton, Madonna, and H.P. Lovecraft, to name a few. Nonetheless, the natural character of this card is not that of a rocket scientist. The Knight of Discs keeps his nose to the grindstone and takes little interest in and has little respect for intellectual musings on the finer aspects of culture or civilization. If ill aspect, he will even make ignorance a virtue and take obstinate pride in his own lack of sophistication and subtlety. I know a few people like that in this portrait. Okay. David Crockett, Annie Oakley, in Country and Western star Buck Owens, Porter Wagner, Patsy Cline, and Jim Reeves were also noted this. Rich, brown, green, gold, and yellow dominate this card. All right, we are now moving over to the Queen of Discs. Very interesting one. This one. Sounds like Sagittarius to Capricorn. All right. Queen of Discs. Here we go. She's impetuous, kind, timid, rather charming, great-hearted, intelligent, melancholy, truthful yet of many moods. If ill-dignified, she is undecided, capricious, changeable, foolish. So this sort of has a lot of parallels with Baphomet and Capricorn, as you can sort of see, which is sort of interesting. All right. The Queen of Discs represents the watery part of Earth, the function of that element as mother. She rules the 21st degree of Sagittarius to the 20th degree of Capricornus. She represents passivity, usually in its highest aspect. The Queen of Discs is thrown upon the life of vegetation. She contemplates the background where a calm river winds through a sandy desert to bring it to its fertility. Oases are beginning to shew themselves amid the wastes. Before her stands a goat upon a sphere. There is here a reference to the dogma that the great work is fertility. Her armor is composed of small scales of coins, and her helmet is adorned with the great spiral horns of a markhor. In her right hand, she bears a scepter surmounted by a cube, within which is a three-dimensional hexagram. And in her left arm is curved her proper disc, a sphere of loops and circles and interlace. She thus represents the ambition of matter to take part in the great work of creation. Persons signified by this card possess the finest of the quieter qualities. They are ambitious but only in useful directions. They possess immense funds of affection, kindness, and greatness of heart. They are not intellectual or not particularly intelligent, but instinct and intuition are more than adequate for their needs. These people are quiet, hard-working, practical, sensible, domesticated, often in a reticent and unassuming fashion, lustful and even debauched. They are inclined to the abuse of alcohol and of drugs. It is as if they could only realize their essential happiness by getting outside themselves. If ill-dignified, they are dull, servile, foolish. They are drudges rather than workers. Life for them is purely mechanical, and they cannot rise or even seek to rise above their appointed lot. In Yi King, the watery part of Earth is represented by the 31st hexagram, Hussein. This has the meaning influence. The commentary described the effect of moving various parts of the body, from the toes to the jaws and tongues. This is rather an amplification of what has been said to that of an exact correspondence, yet there is no discordance. The general advice is to go forward quietly without overt attack upon existing situations. I mean, there's not much to say about that one. So far, I really like my favorite suit so far has actually got to be air, the air court cards, because they seem to really represent ideas that are quite relevant to us, especially in regards to the mind. I'm not sure about this one. All right. A person signified by this card use the finest of their quieter qualities. They are ambitious, but only in useful directions. So life giving water to a thirsty earth. What a beautiful concept. What a beautiful tarot card. Her dress alone is worth looking at with a magnifying glass. The genteel author Jane Austen is an ideal model for Crowley's characterization of this card and matches his description in the Book of Thoth perfectly. She was quietly passive, but passivity Crowley claims in its highest aspect. She and many of her characters were quiet, hard-working, practical, sensible, domesticated. Like Austen herself, however, there is much more to the Queen of Discs than needlepoint and country dances. I believe, at least on one level, Aleister Crowley was having us on when he wrote, They are not intellectual and not particularly intelligent, but instinct and intuition are more than adequate for their needs. I think he was getting closer to the truth when he wrote, "She thus represents the ambition of matter to take part of the great work of creation." Think about that for a minute. That is a force to be reckoned with. Water of Earth manifests in very complex and diverse ways, and these are reflected in the broad spectrum of personalities who can embody the ambition of matter to take part in the great work of creation. A Queen of Discs can be strong and charismatic like her sister Joan of Arc, or just talented and charismatic like Elvis Presley. She can be ruthless and manipulative like Catherine of Aragon, Joseph Stalin. Damn. Joseph Stalin, a bloody Queen of Discs. Mao Zedong and Richard Nixon, or sensitive and idealistic like Woodrow Wilson, George Washington Carver, or Carl Sandburg. She can possess instinctual, intuitive, and superior intelligence like Nostradamus, Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton, and Stephen Hawking, or she can be a giant or creative force like Ludwig van Beethoven, Stephen. Dark greens and rich browns dominate the foreground of this card. So I think what this card sort of represents with, or like when you're looking at all of these different kinds of people, is that like the diversity, because they bring about life, and the Queen of Discs is like this pure potential in a sense, and that's actually a big part of it, from what I'm gathering. All right, we are 51 minutes in. Let's get to the Prince of Discs. All right. Do I know a Prince of Discs? No, I do not. Let's continue though. The Prince of Discs, increase of matter, increases good or evil, solidifies, practically applies things, steady, reliable, if ill dignified, he is selfish, animal, and material stupid. God, Crowley really had a way of like just absolutely insulting everyone. In either case, slow to anger, but furious if roused. The Prince of Discs represents the airy part of Earth, indicating the fluorescence and fructification of that element. He rules from the 21st degree of Aries to the 20th degree of Taurus. The figure of this prince is meditative. He is the element of Earth becoming intelligible. Clothed in light armor, his helmet is crowned with the head of a bull, and his chariot is drawn by an ox. This animal being peculiarly sacred of the element Earth. In his left hand he holds his disc, which is an orb resembling a globe, marked with mathematical symbols, as if to imply the planning involved in agriculture. In his right hand, he bears an orbed scepter surmounted by a cross, a symbol of the great work accomplished. For it is his function to bring forth from the material of the element that vegetation which is the sustenance of spirit itself. There you go. So yeah, that's basically just to say like the earth is actually what brings forth spirit in the first place. And the water part of it, which is the mother, which is the amniotic fluid, is actually what animates that. The character denoted by this card is that of great energy brought to bear upon the most solid of practical matters. He is energetic and enduring, a capable manager, a steadfast and persevering worker. He is competent, ingenious, thoughtful, cautious, trustworthy, imperturbable. He constantly seeks new uses for common things and adapts his circumstances to purposes in a slow, steady, well thought out plan. He is lacking almost entirely in emotion. He is somewhat insensitive and may appear dull, but he is not. It so appears because he makes no effort to understand ideas which are beyond his scope. He may often appear stupid and is inclined to be resentful of more spiritual types. He is slow to anger, but if driven, becomes implacable. It is not very practicable to distinguish between the good and evil dignities in this card. One can merely say that in this case of his being ill-dignified, both the quality and quantity of his characteristics are somewhat degraded. The reaction of others to him will depend almost entirely upon their own temperaments. In the I Ching, the airy part of Earth is represented by the 53rd hexagram Qian. The commentary concerns the flight of wild geese, gradually approaching the shore, then the large rocks, then advance to the dry plains, the trees, the high, finally to the large heights. It thus symbolizes slow, steady emancipation from repressive conditions. Yeah, sometimes you need to slowly remove yourself from repressive conditions, and that can be hard. I know that too well. Not just in like your circumstances surrounding you, but the repressive conditions of the mind. Those are probably much more difficult to sort of really wrap your head around more than you might think. All right. The description is even happier than that given by the Kabbalah, although in every way congruous with it. Practical considerations are never absent from Chinese thought, even at its most abstruse and metaphysical. The fundamental heresy of the Black Lodge is contempt for the world, the flesh, and the devil. Damn. That is black magic. And I think that really hits me because, like, when I first became, I guess, when I first got into it, I was constantly thinking about like the Black Lodge, and that seems to perfectly explain why. Because I think one of the hardest things that some people need to get out of their system, because for me, I just hated being alive, man. It was fucked. And I had nothing but disdain for existence. I had nothing but disdain for nature. And there is a reason for that. Okay? Like, I've worked through it personally. I won't go into the full details, but there's usually a reason as to why you feel that way. And sometimes to be able to transcend that is really difficult. And I still have trouble to this day to try and just like live with the fact that the world, the flesh, and the devil, which are all central planets of the universe. And now that I think about it, maybe that was a bit of a message from the universe with the whole Jehovah thing with suffering and whatever have you, that we will somehow end suffering. We can't, as long as it's it's congruent and part of the universe. Okay, it is cardinal to the great work for the adept, so to order affairs that even the evil germs of matter shall alike become useful and good. That is probably a really, really important thing. So I'm glad I looked over that for a bit. The error of Christian mystics on this point has been responsible for more cruelty, misery, and collective insanity than all others put together. It's poison and can be traced even in the teaching of Freud, who assumed that the unconscious was the devil. That is, yeah, that's not fun. To sort of make your own unconscious mind evil. Not great. Whereas, in fact, it is the instinct which expresses beneath a veil. And that is true. The inherent point of view of each, and properly understood, is the key to initiation, and a hint of what the seed may blossom and fructify as the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel, for every man and every woman is a star. But no doubt the judgment of the adepts exempt, for it is they who determine under the guidance of the masters of the temple all such details of doctrine. In respect of this card, have been influenced by its transition from Aries to Taurus. It is too often forgotten that Taurus is the house of Venus and that Luna is exalted therein. The new doctrine set forth in this present essay makes the primary color of Earth not black, but green. We've seen that before, and it was sort of mentioned in the... Oh, there was another card. There was a few other cards. But I think that's, yeah. It makes the primary color of Earth black, but green because it represents fertility. And insists that every disc is a living and revolving symbol. The central thesis of the book of the law asserts the perfection of the universe in its pantheistic conception of all possibilities are equal in value. Each and every point event is a play of new, as is written in the book of wisdom will follow. Bind nothing. Let there be no difference made among you between any one thing. All is one, people. All is there to serve you. Even like there's so much like crap that goes on in the world at the moment, right? And, you know, it's frustrating. I'm sure a lot of you are sick of it, but but we have to sort of really remember that it's actually here for a reason, right? Like all this evil and discomfort, uprisings are actually here for some kind of purpose. And I think that's always a hard thing to sort of accept, I guess. Because I think that's been the biggest thing of our age, I think. because we are an incredibly traumatized sort of populace that have like lived through countless wars and all other kinds of things, that we just want the suffering to stop. Like, we're sick of, like, you know, like the overlords or the parasite class. I fucking hate calling them elites. They're parasites. And we're sick of, like, people being dumb and retarded and being ignorant and egoic. We're sick of, like, the willful ignorance. We're sick of a lot of shit, right? It's frustrating. And then you compound that with the fact that we go on Facebook and then we see it all the time. And then we get even more sad because what happens is, I think this is sometimes avoiding social media is really difficult in that sense, because it plants ideas in your mind unconsciously. It doesn't matter if like you're not actively trying to think about it. I think this is why, like, things like art, like I've constantly heard from Manly P Hall, for example, that like art placed in your house, even if you're not actively looking at it, is having an effect on you. It's in your mind. And I think on some level, social media is the same thing. Even though like the picture might disappear from your sight, it's already working in the back of your mind, and it sort of might be driving other processes. Anyway, enough about that. And like, but yeah, we need to really just accept that the universe is never gonna have an end to suffering. So no, suffering will never end, Jehovah's Witness. All right. And now that I think about it, sorry that it's 11:11. Very nice. And now that I think about it, like, we got to stop trying to, I think that's the other thing, right? Like, these religions that try to end suffering seem to also perpetuate it, if you think about it. As they're trying to end suffering, they somehow make it go out again. So maybe the whole point isn't to try and end suffering in the first place. Man, I should probably make this bloody thing into a book once like getting the transcripts and everything, because it's been quite helpful. Anyway, let's begin on the Duquette one. The Prince of Discs is a devil. I've been a whole week of him, and he is engendering a nervous breakdown in me, coupled with starvation, as he gives me no time to eat. He is a bastard. However, I hope I've got him today. He swells and swells, and I can't get him in the picture with all the farm produce and bulls you suggest. Harris to Crowley, date uncertain. A devil indeed, but what a devil. I don't think it's a good idea to put too many princesses of discs in the same room. These fellows change the world with their great energy brought to bear upon the most solid of practical matters. Consider this short roster of princesses of discs: Marcus Aurelius, William Shakespeare, Catherine the Great, Thomas Jefferson, Robespierre, Ulysses S. Grant, Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, Nikolai Lenin, Adolf Hitler, Emperor Hirohito, Robert Oppenheimer, Harry Truman, Golda Meir, and Saddam Hussein. So a lot of devils there. Good grief. You and I, however, are more likely to run into what I call the garden variety princess of discs. And by garden variety, I mean just that. Harris's prince is seated in a chariot filled with globular seeds that seem to be ready to burst into plants. It actually is. Yeah, you're right. At any moment. He is a very cool character. His eyes are closed in meditation, as if he were mentally directing the brooding fecundity of the entire universe. He is the dull picture of someone who is in control on the material plane. He may seem a bit dull and emotionless, but he's not. He's just not a snob, and he doesn't bother with things he considers impractical. He is the ultimate handyman. Crowley confirms that assessment, telling us that he is competent, ingenious, thoughtful, cultures, trustworthy, impetuous. He constantly seeks new use of common things. This is the darkest cut of the suits of discs, full of rich brown and blacks. Wow. All right. We now come to the final card, which is the Princess of Discs. And for some reason, I feel like this is going to have a pretty lengthy explanation. Because I've always noticed, like, the very beginning always has a pretty heady explanation and unfoldment, and so does the end. So both, like, the beginning and the end always have, like, really, really profound parts of it intertwined. So Princess of Discs, here we go. Well, it's not as folded, but yeah. Princess of Discs. And I think that's also the cover of this book too. There you go. So we will continue. She is generous, kind, diligent, benevolent, careful, courageous, persevering, pitiful. If ill-dignified, she is wasteful and prodigal. All right. The Princess of Discs, the last of the court cards, represents the earthy part of Earth. She is consequently on the brink of transfiguration. She is strong and beautiful with an expression of intense brooding, as if about to become aware of secret wonder. Her crest is the head of a ram, and her scepter descended into the earth. Oh yeah, it actually is in the earth. It's in the earth. There, its head becomes a diamond, the precious stone of Keter. Keter in the earth. Thus symbolizing the birth of the highest and purest light in the deepest and darkest of the elements. She stands with a grove of sacred trees before an altar, suggesting a wheat sheaf, for she is a priestess of Demeter. She bears within her body the secret of the future. Her sublimity is further emphasized by the disc which she bears, for in the center thereof is the Chinese ideogram denoting the twin spiral force of creation in perfect equilibrium. From this is born the rose of Isis, the great fertile mother. And maybe that's where the whole thing comes from. I sometimes wonder, like, when you think about it, since matter is light, but did light really ever descend into matter, or was matter always a thing? Now that I think about it. I got to think about that, man. That's actually quite potent. All right, the characteristics of an individual signified by this card are too various to enumerate. One must summarize by saying that she is womanhood in its ultimate projection. She contains all the characteristics of woman and will be dependent entirely upon the influences to which she is subjected, whether one or another become manifest. But in every case, her attributes will be pure in themselves and not necessarily connected with any other attributes which in the normal way one regards as symbolic. In one sense, then, her general reputation will be of bewildering inconsistency. It is rather like a lottery wheel from which the extraction of any number does not predict it of influence the result of any subsequent operation. The fruit of philosophy of Philema is enjoyed rare, ripe, nourishing, and vitalizing at its highest and fullest in this meditation. For the adept, every turn of the wheel is equally probable and equally a prize, for every event is a play of Nuit. There you go. Everything's a play of Nuit. It's all Nuit. All the cosmic horrors and all the beauties of the world, I knew it. I knew it! Okay. In the I Ching, the earthy part of Earth is represented by the 52nd hexagram, Khan. The meaning is a mountain. Of how sublime a significance is the Chinese doctrine of balance and how closely congruous with that of the Holy Kabbalah. The mountain is the most sacred of all terrestrial symbols, stark, rugged, and immovable in its aspiration to the highest, thrust up as it is by the titan energy of hidden fire. It is no less an hieroglyph of the inmost Godhead than the phallus itself. Even as Capricornus, the sign of the new year, is exalted in the zodiac, its deity Orthothonus is no less than the most holy ancient one himself. It is essential for the student to trace this doctrine for himself in every symbol. Air, the elastic and flexible, yet all-pervading in the element of combustion. Water, fluid yet incompressible. The most neutral and composed of all components of living matter, yet destructive even of the hardest rocks by physical assault. And irresistible in its burning power of solution, and fire, so kin to spirit that it is not a substance at all, but a phenomenon, yet so integral to matter that it is very hard, in essence of all things soever. The characteristic occurrent in the I Ching is rest. Each line of the comment describes repose in the parts of the body in turn, and their effects: the toes, the calves, the loins, the spine, and the jaws. This chapter is a close parallel in its respect, line by line, with the 31st sign, which begins the second section of the Yi. The Rosicrucian doctrine of tetragrammaton could hardly be more adequately stated: to every ear that is to heavenly harmony attuned. All right. All right. Let's actually continue back here. All right. We are now on the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen, for the Princess of Discs. We are going to now go into the final one, which is Lon Milo Duquette's explanation. 1 hour and 10 minutes. It's probably going to be the longest one I've ever done, but I'm glad I did it. The princess is now on the stocks. I wish she would not insist on being pregnant. She just will. So now I have to let her get on with it. She chatters to me about being mixed up with the Virgin Mary. Harris to Crowley, December 11, 1942. Okay. We do not know for certain which card of the Thoth Tarot Lady Harris painted last, but the date of the above note suggests that she was working on the Princess of Discs. Toward the very end of the project, if she did complete the deck with this card, she certainly saved the best for last. For me, the Princess of Discs is the most beautiful female figure in the entire Thoth Tarot. She is strong and beautiful, Crowley affirms, with an expression of intense brooding, as if about to become aware of secret wonder. To be embarrassingly honest, I am more profoundly and most hopelessly in love with her. That's probably why you made her the cover of your book, buddy. I'm not alone in my sloppy adoration of her divine image. Enlargements of this card adorn the living room walls of many of my colleagues. It is one of the most frequently reproduced cards of the deck. That's interesting, actually. Well, yeah, it actually is kind of beautiful when you look at it. It's really nice. Something I've noticed also, it's like a fur along her back and spiraling, and it's sort of going into the ground. It's really interesting. I now ask the reader to recall the Kabbalistic fairy tale we discussed in chapter 11 and the importance of the princess as carrier of the essence of highest high and the lowest low. As Earth of Earth, she is the lowest core card of the lowest suit. She is the ultimate princess. Not only is she pregnant with the highest high, and the lowest low, as Earth of Earth, she is the lowest core card of the lowest suit. She is the ultimate princess. Not only is she pregnant with the and everything in between of the suit of Dis, she's pregnant with the highest high and lowest low and everything in between of all the suits. Oh, he really. Oh, okay. He was just making a strong emphasis. I thought I accidentally read it twice. Maybe I didn't. She is the Malkuth of Malkuths and carries within her body the potential of all possibilities and the key to perpetuating the life of the universe. As a priestess of Demeter, she arises in her glory from out of the earth itself and establishes her altar in the midst of a grove of barren and dying trees that her fertile presence will now restore to green health. Her magic wand is the diamond-tipped rob, symbolizing the essence of Keter, the highest high, and whose tetrahedral form is the basic structure of all carbon-based life. She is wrapped in an enormous cape of what appears to be animal fur and is crowned with the head and horns of a ram. Her disc is a giant seed composed of 36 sections, perhaps suggesting the source of the 36 small cards of the tarot to follow. Nice. Wait, where is the 36? Her disc is a giant seed composed. Oh, it is too. The central germ of seed is the Chinese yin yang. Dark yellow disc and brown radiate a warm and almost human atmosphere for this card. Textured grey is combined to make this card almost tactile. All this Kabbalistic cosmology and Eleusinian mythology is fine and good, but Crowley told us at the beginning of our discussion of the core cards that these cards are suitable as being descriptive in a rough and empirical fashion of diverse types of men and women. In a tarot reading, what kind of person does the Princess of Discs represent? Because her potential is limitless, Crowley writes that she might have the reputation of bewildering inconsistency. He uses the example of a lottery, where it does not matter how many times a particular number has been drawn in the past, each future draw provides the same odds of it being drawn or not drawn again. That is true. That's actually 100% true. In the old days of male chauvinism, this quality might have been summed up in the somewhat sexist term woman's prerogative. That might have been where Crowley was coming from when he wrote that Princess of Gifts represents womanhood in its ultimate projection. As he concludes in his commentary of this card of the Book of Thoth, Crowley writes as if he were ending the entire book. In a way, he was, because the Princess of Dis in many ways the last tarot card. I too would like to end our discussion of the court cards with this wonderful, with his wonderful of benediction. Let every student of this essay and of this book of Tahuti, this living book that guides man through the time and leads him to the eternity at every page, hold fast the simplest, more far-reaching doctrine in his heart and mind, inflaming the inmost of his being, that he also, having explored each recess of the universe, may therein find the light of truth, so come to the knowledge and the conversation of Holy Angel and summon the great work, attain the sunum bonum, true wisdom, and perfect happiness. And that, ladies and gentlemen, so I guess when you attain to the great work, you become pregnant again. For it to all start again. Because she sort of represents the beginning and the end of the great work. And I think that's what it's actually representing. She's beginning and end of great work. All right. That will be the end of that tarot card discussion. That was that was quite good. I enjoyed that. It's actually now made me much more interested in the core cards after going into the airy and earthy parts of it. Yeah. Next time we will start on the small cards, we'll start with the Ace of Discs and of course the small cards explanation. And then we'll probably go from there. Or it might even have to be 5 whole things if I want to actually go over like the full description of what's being talked about here. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching this. Hope you got to the end of it. I'm actually quite tired after that. Thank you so much. Please like, share, subscribe. And I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.